Welcome to the Feminine Prosperity Plan webinar. And as you're arriving, I'm just going to ask you to go ahead and close your eyes and just take a moment to draw your energy inwards. And I want you to just let your energy drop down into the pelvis, as if you're taking a little elevator down from the head, letting the energy drop down to the bottom floor, to the ground floor in your body so that you can ground. So with your eyes closed, I want you just to start to tune into that ground floor of your body. I want you to really feel the parts of your body that are making contact with the seat beneath you. And just let yourself sit with that for a moment while our attendees for the webinar are arriving. You can use this time to really let go of maybe the activity from the day, anything that you're hanging on to that is no longer necessary, just letting your energy drop down into your body, letting yourself come into the present moment. And really tuning into your thighs and to your butt cheeks and all the parts of your body that are making contact with that seat beneath you. And imagine that your awareness and your breath that you're bringing there is like flame to candle wax. And so you're just letting these parts of your body soften and spread and melt. And feeling as it melts, that there's this incredible oozy softness, and you're feeling your receptivity opening up. And you might even notice that this starts to awaken and activate some energy in your pelvic floor. And I want you to invite any sensation, softening, opening you feel there. We're so used to trying to draw our energy out of that area. And I want to encourage you to just let your energy soften there as well. Imagine that your breath and now your awareness there is just softening those parts of your body, letting them settle down into the seat beneath you, receiving support. And you can draw your awareness actually to the very center point of the pelvic floor, which is your perineum. It's the center between your vaginal opening and your anal opening. And I want you to imagine that you can drop a cord of connection from this center point down to in the seat beneath you and down through the floorboards. And it continues to drop down into the basement of the building you're in. And that cord continues down into the earth. And it continues dropping and dropping through many deep layers of the earth till it reaches the very center, this molten lava core of the earth, and it wraps itself around. And with your eyes closed, just dropping into this sensation of this cord from your pelvis that's now connected to the very core of the earth. And just imagine as you sit here and you take in a few deep breaths, imagine that you can actually pull in energy from the earth's core. Life force, vitality, nourishment through that earth's core up into through the cord into your body, into your pelvis, awakening you there. So just breathing into that and just noticing whatever sensation you have. Maybe you have sensations of pleasure. Maybe you have a sensation of just feeling really rooted and grounded or nourished. And just enjoying that for a moment. And just taking this as a moment to drop any responsibility that you're carrying from your day, anything that's weighing on you, and just giving yourself permission to be here now, to be in your receptivity, and to really open to this training, this conversation we're going to have around prosperity, around burnout, and around how to really live your dream life. And I know that sounds like such a cliche, but really the prosperous life that's very particular to you, that you want to live. When you are ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes. And I want to welcome you all to this free training. And I am really excited to share this information with you tonight. And I'm extra excited because of the fact that it's something very, very close to my own heart. It's something that is very close to my own experience and breakthroughs that I've gone through in the past year that I just really want to share with other women and let them have the benefit of. And so a little bit about me is I'm Amanda, and I'm founder of Urban Goddess. And I've had this company for over 10 years now, and I've been supporting women in really living into their power. And I do that through courses. I've done that through retreats that I've led, one-on-one coaching. And before that, I was actually a nutrition and health coach. And so I've been working with women for a really, really long time. And many of the women that I work with, I would call the new paradigm leaders. They're women that are really ambitious. They're women that have a vision. They're women that feel called to contribute in some way. They feel that they're here with a calling. And that can show up in a lot of different ways. So many of the women that I work with are founders and CEOs of companies that are really making an impact, or they're new in that process, or they're a healer of some sort and starting their own business, their own work in that way. And some of them are women who are mothers and stay at home and are really leaders in their family tribe and how they're raising their children. But what I've noticed with all of the women that I've worked with is that there are some core issues that across the board affect them. And I feel like this one issue around really getting what prosperity is and feeling it on a cellular level and moving through burnout is the number one most important thing for women to really heal at this time. Because all of these women that I work with suffer from burnout. And it may look a little different for each woman, but there is something that's happening where there's a lot of energy going out and not necessarily an equal or more amount coming in to refill and replenish the tank. And when we're really young, we can kind of get by on that for a while, but there's a lot of stress hormone production that's going on, pushing through adrenaline, cortisol, the coffee, and eventually that catches up with us. And the suffering can be physical, it's mental, it shows up in not being able to have time sometimes for your relationships, for romance, for sex, for pleasure, for joy. Eventually it can show up in just an inability to manifest financially what you want, or it can stop your business, or your business might really be going, but you are suffering underneath. And the women that I'm working with who are meant to be these leaders have so much to offer the world, have so much to give. But if they're burnt out, that gift can't really be maximized. And on a personal level, they suffer and they can't really live the vision, the dream life that they've pictured for themselves. And then the world suffers and the tribe around suffers because she's not able to really give her gifts fully. And what I've discovered that this is based on is really a misunderstanding that our culture has around what prosperity is, and a judgment that our culture has that we then absorb and internalize around receiving and around feminine energy. And so there's a really disempowering myth, and we've unconsciously absorbed this myth, and it looks something like this. Prosperity, which is that dream life, everything that you want to create and experience in your life, is something that's going to come to you through money. And money is something that's going to come to you through masculine energy. It's associated with the masculine. And that means that it could come through a man, or for us as women, that we feel we need to be in our masculine in order to really master money or make money. And this is incredibly disempowering to us. This has us have a huge disconnect to our feminine energy, and it keeps us from experiencing what prosperity really can be. It's easy to understand how we absorb this, because money has been something that has been really controlled, owned, and dominated by men for hundreds, even thousands of years. So it's not been the natural place for us as women. Just feel into that. I believe it wasn't until 1975 in this country that women were able to open a credit card on their own. Like a single woman could go in and open a credit card on her own without having to have a male cosigner. That's not that long ago. That is how deep the disconnect is between money and the whole money world and the feminine and women. So we believe, and we see evidence that seems to support it, that in order for us to really have a strong relationship with money, that we need to move into our masculine, or in some cases, receive it somehow through a man. So that's one of the myths that needs to be busted right there. We can receive money and be in our feminine. This is one of the number one things I want us to really heal as women and understand. And it has to do with our ability to be receiving and to be magnetizing. It's a much more fun way to make your money than being in your masculine and pushing and driving. Now, the other part of the equation, this prosperity comes to us through money, is also a myth. So again, we see evidence that says, okay, if I want stuff in my life, I have to have money to get it. And so my prosperity is going to come to me through money. However, prosperity is an experience. Prosperity is a beingness in the moment that is actually available to you anytime. And many of the things that you want to experience in your life may come to you through money, but they don't necessarily have to come to you through money. So we experience prosperity in a prosperous life could look like having lots of support and friends around us, having lots of luxury in our life, having delicious meals, and having time and expansiveness and nature and whatever that prosperous life means to you. Money is not the creator of any of that. It's a potential channel for it to come to you, but it's not the creator of it. We need to actually start to understand that we have more internal, direct control or access, maybe is a better word, access to the experience of prosperity than we give ourselves credit for when we give so much of the power over to a number and to something such as money. So I want to break some of that down for you and help you understand that as a woman, when you are in your receiving energy and you're divinely connected to your right to live a prosperous life, and you start living in that right now, that is where your prosperity will come to you from. And the money and all of these things will be reflected to you. They will come as a reflection of what you're living in. But first, you have to be able to step into your ability to receive, be in your feminine energy, and believe that can create your prosperity. So the wounds, there's 3 primary wounds that I've seen again and again with women who I've worked with. And they match up, these 3 wounds match up to the 3 primary powers of the feminine, which is part of the coursework that I teach and that I coach women through. That there's 3 primary powers, and there are 3 faces of the goddess: a compassionate goddess, a sensual goddess, and a warrior goddess. And I don't want to go into too much detail about those goddess faces right now. They're really these archetypes that represent aspects of our feminine power. But we have wounds around money and prosperity that are associated with each of these powers. So the first one is the overgiver. This is the wounded, compassionate goddess. And I think so many women can identify with this. This is a woman who just wants to give so much. And so if you identify with this wound, you might be a very sensitive person. You might have some kind of spiritual connection that's really deep. You might be a very heart-centered person, very compassionate. You just feel people, and you tend to want to do work in the world that is really giving. So a lot of the women that I work with that are healers, that have some kind of work that's about giving to the world and making an impact in that way, fall into this category. What can happen here is that you're so on the giving part that you have a disconnect on your ability to receive. You're so focused on giving out and making a difference for others that you get caught on that. And it's like there's no space for the inflow. You need to be receiving and filling your tank. Also, women in this who fall into this wound tend to undercharge for their services and just really have some issues around really asking for money, asking for what they want in the world, kind of making themselves small while serving others. And here, what happens is the burnout occurs because you're just constantly giving. And eventually you'll get resentful, or it'll show up in your health when you've been burning yourself out in this way. Now, the second wound is the woman who has really taken on that masculine energy. And this is usually a woman who's been really successful, worked with a lot of women who've been very successful in the corporate world, or have started their own company and really, made the money. They've done it. And they did it by being in their masculine energy and by pushing and having this drive. And they come to me saying like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. I'm tapped out. I'm exhausted. I feel like my body isn't my body. I feel disconnected to my sexual energy. I feel like I don't even know what my feminine is anymore. I have no time for dating. And I'm exhausted all the time, and I just can't do it. This is really common for women that are high achievers. And it's just this point of just exhaustion and burnout and saying, this is not sustainable. I can't do this anymore. And again, it's the same thing, the push, the drive, all this outward energy without allowing oneself to really receive, to replenish, to fill up. Now, the third wound that I see in women, I would say is not as common as those first two categories, but it's something that I see as well. And that is what I call kind of a wounded receiver. This is a woman who has actually got everything in her life. And she's not letting herself really experience the prosperity that's there. She's not letting herself receive it. And often it may have come to her too easily. Maybe it came through an inheritance, or she married into it. It's often money that she didn't make herself. And she feels some guilt about receiving it, or about really, and it may not even be something that she's conscious of. Like, she may not consciously think that she has guilt about it, but somehow she finds a way to be on output so much of the time that she doesn't let herself receive the gifts that she has in her life. So sometimes these women are mothers, and of course you want to give to your child, but she might get so focused on giving and giving to them and giving to the partner, and maybe even doing charity work, but it's like all the energy is going out, and she ends up somehow, even though she's got this magnificent life, feeling exhausted and burnt out. And so those are the three primary wounds. And I want you just to feel into, do you see yourself in any of those? Is one of them like glaringly you? Or maybe you actually see yourself in all three. I experience myself in all three of those. Because we all, like that last one, it's, maybe a more extreme example to say the woman who has, received like enormous wealth and won't let herself enjoy it. Versus the fact that we all actually have pretty good lives. Like, there's a lot of prosperity around us that we're not letting ourselves really experience. So just feeling into where you see yourself on that spectrum. And I want to share a little bit with you about my own experience, because this past year for me has been really revolutionary around this. And I literally feel like a new woman, and people that know me, that maybe haven't seen me for a little while, walk in the room and they feel it and they see it. I look different. I feel different. I am so much more fulfilled. I am so much more really living as a prosperous woman in the truth of what that is. So here's my story. And I started my business many years ago in New York City. And when I first started to do work with the goddess, one of the things that I experienced was that there was an incredible amount of wisdom and gifts and downloads and things that were coming through, and work that I knew was really meant to make an impact with a lot of women. And when I first started my business, I had some trouble. Like, I wasn't that financially fit. We'll just say that. I had all these gifts that I was giving, but I wasn't quite sure how to monetize that, how to turn that into money. And then over time, I actually really figured out how to do that. And without completely realizing it, one of the things I was doing was leaning more into my masculine. So I started to become much more structured, and I started to take on these way of doing things from my mentors that were successful for them, and then my business became successful. And I became something that is a little rare, which is a woman doing this spiritual divine feminine work and having a really successful, flourishing six-figure business. And so I was able to really create a lot of things that were in my dream life. I moved to LA, and I got a lot of things that I had made a vision board for, which was the car that I wanted and where I wanted to live and the house I wanted. And there were a lot of elements of a prosperous life that I attained. But what happened was I burned out. And it was really, it's vulnerable in a way for me to share this, because it was like, here I am doing this work, and I was serving my women beautifully. They were flourishing. I was giving so much, yet underneath I was burning out. And I wasn't feeling prosperous. And I really was like, after I would give so much, I would come home and pass out, watching Netflix on my couch. And I felt like I didn't have the time and the space to be dating and having romance and fun and play and travel. And I felt kind of resentful sometimes when I would see other people that, would be posting on Facebook or something. They're flying to Fiji or to Bali, or they're doing this or that, and feeling like, why can't I have that? Like, I can't have that. I have to just keep working so hard. And seeing my clients flourish in these ways, and then feeling like sometimes I wasn't able to experience the same things that I was helping them create. And my body, I gained weight. I had some aches in my body. Like, I just didn't feel my best self. And I came to a point last year, just over a year ago, where I came to a breaking point where I said, this isn't worth it. Like, I want to just give up my business and go live on a tropical island, and just stop doing this work that I knew was important, but I just want to give it up. And so that was a sign to me that something needed to change. So what I did was I actually simplified things in my business. I whittled some things down. I reduced my expenses. I took a step back, and I decided to ask myself, really, what is the prosperous life for me? What is the vision that I desire? What do I really want? And I discovered that it was different in many ways than what I thought, or that I was sort of going, sort of following what was shown to me was what it was supposed to be, and hadn't really asked myself what it was. And I discovered that for me, it involved travel. I did a lot of traveling. It involved spending time in nature. I started having time for romance and dates and incredible sex and all of these things that I had been denying myself when I was so focused on my goals and I was so driven in that way. And I started to experience really understanding what prosperity meant for me and what my priorities were and what kind of life I wanted to live. And what I discovered through this process is that I can actually make the impact, make the money, do this important work, but do it from an internal place of prosperity as a starting point, as a baseline. That I'm not going to do anything that's going to take me out of that. And this is something where we have to take a stand for ourselves as women, because we have an opportunity as the new paradigm leaders. There's such a sense right now that women's voices and our contribution is so important in what's going to be taking place in the shift in the planet right now and in our culture. And if we're burning ourselves out and we're playing into these old paradigm ways of doing things, we're not really going to be able to make the impact that we're meant to make. And we're not going to be able to make the shifts that we're here to make. And I'm going to go real deep for a moment to say that this internal shift out of a scarcity, stress, pushing vibration into a space of internal vibration of prosperity, internal prosperity as a baseline, that shift is one of the most important shifts that needs to happen on our planet right now. Because it's really a shift out of so many of the issues of conflict and war and starvation and poverty and hatred, and so much of what's going on is coming from an understanding of the world as being a place that's limited and scarce. And so people are tensing themselves up and battling. And we live in such an angry world in so many ways right now. And what happens when you make this shift? Not only do you have so much more fun and you get your body back, it's like when I did all these changes, by the way, it's like my body has completely shifted. When you're in this place and you're able to have all this fun, you also become really generous. You're able to give. So the woman that wants to give and then starts getting resentful because she's been overgiving and not receiving eventually starts to tense up. But when you are receiving in this way and you're living in a prosperous vibration, you can be so generous. And it's really predicated upon the understanding that we can have heaven on earth now. So we live in a culture that puts off into the future heaven. Like if you think about just the spiritual story that our culture is based on, it's like this sense that heaven is off in the future, that if you're really, really good, then when you die, you get to go there. And we also live trapped in this linear timeline that says like, okay, eventually I'm going to get the payoff. Eventually, when I retire, I'll get to go have fun. Or eventually, often for us, we played out in these little daily dynamics that like, oh, when I get this done, then I can have fun. And when I get that done, and then it tends to build and build, and we never get there. We never get to that place that's off in the future. And that shift in the prosperity frequency helps us to ground into the fact that you could actually have this now. That your heaven on earth is actually available now when you allow yourself to be open and receive it. And that when you start weaving that in through your doing, we're not going to stop totally with our business and our work and our doing. It's weaving this receptivity. It's weaving our feminine energy. It's weaving our prosperous vibration in everything that we're doing throughout the day and making that our baseline. And from there, truly everything becomes reflected back to us. And I love this meme that was going around for a little while. And it had the word hustle crossed out. And then underneath it, it said align. Or there was another one that said alignment is the new hustle. And I would say that is this 100% what I'm speaking of. The old paradigm way, the way that we have been trying to do things that has been creating the burnout is the hustle. It's the push, it's the drive, it's the someday off in the future, I'm gonna get that dream life, and we never get there. The alignment is to say, I'm gonna align with that frequency now. And from that alignment, I'm going to attract to me. It's a focus, it's taking the focus away from the doing and into the being. Like I said, we don't stop doing, but we need, because our culture is so focused on that endless doing, we need to start to bring the awareness and attention for us as women to the being, because that is more the feminine nature. Our culture is so skewed towards that masculine energy that it's skewed towards that doing and that understanding that it's through that doing that we get the money, that we get the prosperity, and putting it all off like that. And it's more feminine to really focus into the being space and understanding that from that being space, we magnetize, we attract, we're able to have flow. And it's that prosperous flow that keeps us from burning out. And it's really giving ourselves permission to be in our feminine and trust it. And I think that's one of the biggest issues for us as women, is that we don't trust our feminine. It's like, oh yeah, that's okay for, certain times, but we don't trust it in general. We trust that the masculine is going to be what takes us to our goals. It's going to be what takes care of us. And if we can heal and start to actually trust that our feminine energy can magnetize, can manifest, is something that's trustable for us, we allow ourselves to really be in that more. We give ourselves permission to be in our feminine. So how do we shift this, right? That's the big question. How do we make this shift from the hustle into alignment, from burnout into feeling prosperous, filled up, fecund, overflowing with this feminine life force energy that magnetizes and allows our life to be playful and fun? Well, there's a few ways that we work on it. One of them is to work with our mental self and our behavioral self and start to rewrite some of the mythologies and have a different understanding of how we're framing our whole experience in our life. And it's also physical. There are physical shifts that want to take place that you're able to actually experience in real time, moment by moment, what it feels like to be in a relaxed nervous system, to be in a prosperous frequency. And then there's spiritual shifts, because really, more than anything, this is a spiritual shift that's taking place. A shift out of fear, scarcity, lack, control, into trust. Knowing you're supported. Trusting yourself. Trusting a higher power. Understanding that prosperity is not something that comes to you from outside yourself. It's something that you create within yourself, really getting in touch with yourself spiritually as a creatrix in your own life. Rather than following that energy that's out there all the time and running after it, to really come into your center, into your core as a woman, spiritually, to own your power as a creatrix in your own life and to lead from there and make choices that say, I'm going to lead with a prosperous vibration. I'm going to prioritize this first and let the rest of my life match up to that. So I have created the Feminine Prosperity Plan. And that is my way of sharing with you how I have done that myself. What are the steps that we go through in order to make that shift? And before I share that with you, I want to share just a little physical practice that can help you have a touch point for what I'm talking about with this shift physically, mentally, and spiritually from being in a place of scarcity, lack, even, and again, that's something that it doesn't matter what the number is in your bank account. This is an energetic space. So you could be a billionaire and be running on a scarcity energetic frequency because you're burning yourself out. You're giving of yourself. You're not letting yourself receive the life you have. So to shift out of that frequency into this space that's available for all of us right now, into this prosperous vibration, I want to share a little exercise with you. And this is an exercise that is something where we're going to get to meet a goddess. And in the work I do, I always weave goddess stories in, because goddess mythologies and stories are really just stories about aspects of ourself, aspects of our own feminine power. And they're here to guide us back to it and create a mental and spiritual connection back to that place. And the goddess that I want to share with you today is an African goddess, and her name is Oshun. And her story is a mythology that I find to be incredibly empowering for women that are suffering burnout, and for us as women to really gain an internal sense of permission to really be in our feminine, to understand the value and the importance of being in our feminine energy. So a little while ago, I said we live our lives based on a mythology that is false, that our culture is based on. And that mythology that we've absorbed is this prosperity equals money, money equals masculine, right? There's a lot of disempowering mythologies that our culture has that we internalize and absorb, but that's the one that I was speaking of today. And the goddesses, in particular this goddess story, is an empowering mythology around our feminine energy. And I want to show you a little picture of her so you know who we're talking about. And this goddess of Shun is actually who Beyonce, at her, I think it was a Grammy performance last year that was so powerful, she embodied two goddesses. One of them was a Virgin Mary, and the other one was Oshun, and she was wearing all that yellow and gold. So I want to do a screen share. Let me just pull up her image for you. It's going to take me a second here. All right, okay, it's there. Share screen, share. Okay, so you should be seeing her right now, and let her be a little larger. So she's this beautiful feminine goddess. She's the African goddess of sensuality, of wealth, of magnetism. And she is, it might be blocked with my image over it, but she's holding in her hand a mirror and she's looking at herself, and she's got this beautiful yellow skirt on, and she's all adorned in gold. And she is a goddess that really teaches us to appreciate our sensual energy, our power as magnetizers and seductresses, and really value our feminine energy. So I'm going to stop the share for a moment. Oops, escape technology. All right. So let me tell you a little bit about her story. So once upon a time, her story goes, well, she has many stories, so this is my favorite. So once upon a time, Ogun, who is the god that is in charge of keeping everything running in society. He's like the god of business and culture and society, and he's the one who keeps it all running all the time. He gets into a funk, and this funk that he's in causes everything to shut down because he's the god that keeps everything running, but it all shuts down, and he goes off into the forest, and he's in this funk, and nobody can bring him out of it. All the gods have gone there and have tried to bring him out of it, and it doesn't work. And so everyone's upset, like, what are we going to do? Everything's shut down. Like, this is a disaster. So Oshun goes out into the forest, and she's, in her beautiful yellow, gold, seductive outfit, and she has a honey pot. This is one of my favorite aspects of her, is she has a magical honey pot tied around her waist. And out of this honey pot, she can cast magical spells. And just feel into how brilliant that is. Like, it's just such a fun metaphor to play with, that as women, this is letting us know about this honey pot that we have, this magic that we have that is around our waist, down in this part of our body. And so she sees where he is in the forest, and she kind of goes into a clearing nearby, and she starts to dance. And as she's dancing, she's reaching into her little honey pot. I can't do this without actually physicalizing it. She reaches into her honey pot, and she takes all of that honey, and she just starts to drizzle it on herself, and she's dancing. So now Ogun, she's got his attention. He's kind of looking, he gets a little closer, and she dances a little closer, and they get closer and closer until eventually she takes a little honey and she drizzles it on his lips, and he starts to laugh, and he comes out of his funk. And it's a really simple story. So that's the story. And then when he comes out of his funk, everything goes back to functioning properly in the world. So she's a heroine. She saves the world with her magical honey pot. Her dance, her feminine energy, her seductive feminine quality actually saves the world. And it's such an empowering mythology compared to, say, the story of Adam and Eve, where a woman's curiosity and her seduction is the downfall of mankind, and she has to be punished for it. And those mythologies are built into the fabric of our culture. And so to feel into this space where, actually my femininity is something that's valued. It's something that the world needs. And so there's a couple ways to feel into this for yourself. Like, one of them is that you get to be her sometimes. So sometimes someone else is that Ogun, and you get to take them out of that funk, and you get to bring your feminine magic and heal the situation. Another way of looking at it is that they're both you, right? So Ogun is that part of ourself that wants to create and be in business and go after goals and it's doing and doing and doing all of the time. And what happens? It breaks down. We can't just keep going and doing that without bringing in Oshun. Oshun comes in and brings this feminine energy. She brings this sweetness. She brings this nectar of being, of joy, of play, of dance. So this is a story about what we need as women to do for ourselves to avoid burnout. What happens when you get to the last stage of burnout? Just shuts down. So we need to be finding that balance in our day-to-day life with our Oshun. So I thought it would be fun just to do a little moment of a physical exercise to connect to that energy and really understand how does that apply to me as a woman. And one of the ways that applies is to really take a moment now, and I want you to take your hands, and I want you to place them over your belly and then over your womb and your sexual area and just feel them there for a moment. And I want you to imagine that this is a precious, magical, magic-making space within your body. And that your pleasure, your creativity, your receptivity. So I talk about these issues we have as women with our receptivity. We're built as receivers. That's one of the distinguishing factors that's different between a man who's a penetrator and a woman as a receiver. You're receiving, that's your essence that you're meant to be, and it's such a gift, and there's so much magic there. So I want you just to close your eyes, and I want you to place your hands there for a moment. And imagine that you have this golden, etheric honey, and it can be like, almost like it's a sparkle. It's the essence, it's really the energy of prosperity and feminine frequency. So with your eyes closed, I want you to reflect back to the exercise I was sharing at the very beginning, where you're feeling into your tailbone and you're feeling into the backs of your thighs that are all spread out along the chair. And you're feeling your awareness like flame to candle wax, softening these parts of your body, spreading, and then taking that awareness into your sexual center, to your whole pelvic floor. Breathing in, flame to candle wax, softening, melting, spreading. And once again, feeling that cord of connection drop down. And that cord goes all the way down through the floor beneath you, the basement, into the earth, down to the very core of the earth, wrapping itself around. And we're going to do a really very simplified version of some of the breathing practices I do. And what I would like for you to do now is you're just going to inhale in through your nose, and then you're going to exhale out through the mouth. Letting that exhale out through the mouth not be forced or pushed, but be this kind of thick, soft breath that's coming out. So in through the nose on a count of 4, and then out through the mouth, double that on a count of 8. And once you get that rhythm going, I want for you to inhale into the nose, but imagine you're inhaling in through that cord of connection that's in the very core of the earth. You're inhaling energy up into your pelvis from there. You're actually letting yourself be supported and filled up by Mother Earth's energy. And when you're exhaling, you're seeing that energy just spread throughout the body and around in the womb, and you can see this beautiful liquid gold elixir that's gathering there. So inhaling in on 4 and exhaling out on a count of 8. Keeping that breathing going, and I want you just to feel into this magical honey, this golden energy that's in your whole pelvic area. And I want you to start to take a hand and spread some of that honey on your body. So maybe bring your hands around your belly, around your hips and your thighs, maybe down your thighs and up through the inner thigh, and just feel like you're spreading that magical feminine honey on your own body. And as you're doing that, you're wiping away the burnout, you're wiping away the exhaustion, and you're filling yourself up with your feminine energy. I'm going to put on a little bit of music, and I'm hoping it won't interfere, because the music can help. So just feeling your thighs, your belly. You can bring up, you can spread that honey over your breasts, your shoulders, your arms, maybe giving yourself a little hug. And as you're doing that, feeling like you are letting yourself embody this beautiful feminine energy. And if your hips want to move a little bit, kind of dance like a shun, you can let yourself do that. Just taking a moment to do something that has no purpose other than really drawing you into your feminine, into your being state, giving yourself permission to let all of that stress, everything else you've been worried about the rest of the day, just fall off your body. And then bringing that to relative stillness. And I want you just to feel into your vision of a prosperous life for a moment. What is it? What's the touch point for you? Of what that life looks like, what it feels like. Feel yourself in that movie. And just take a moment to luxuriate in that. And eventually when you're ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes. And that was just like a little tiny taste. It was like a little taster of what it can be like to activate this feminine receiving energy, to let that really ripple through you on a physical cellular level. And something that can, just hearing that story shift for you a little bit about perhaps what your beliefs are about your own feminine energy, what myths you've been carrying around. And I'm gonna pull up another little slide to share with you. So the Feminine Prosperity Plan, what is that? How do I really apply this in my life? How do I apply this ideology, this shift from hustle to align? And the first step of that is to clarify what prosperity means to you, to identify your prosperous vision. Because one of the things that happens is that we've just adopted what our culture has told us, our family has told us, what the tribe around us has told us is a prosperous life. And sometimes we haven't really gotten clear what it means to us. And so it's helpful to get a clear vision of what that is and to get a touch point for it that you'll be able to reference for yourself. So for me, it has a lot to do with being in nature. And it's interesting because I've moved from New York to LA, and where I am in LA, there's so much more green and nature around me. And now I've started to move to realize I want even more. So I've been spending time in like a couple weeks up in Mount Shasta, in the forest, and some time in Mexico, and trying out different places. But we have to know what it is that we're moving towards and get that clear vision of what it is. And an example that I think of where, a prosperous life, a lot of people think is to have, like, to be able to have a private chef. Like, that's something that comes up with a lot of the women I know that are growing their businesses and saying, like, cooking is such a time suck. Like, I just want someone to cook meals for me for a week. And that's fine. That's great. And I kind of absorbed that and was thinking that that's what I need to have too. And then I realized that I actually love cooking. So for me, like, I love chopping my vegetables, and I love putting love into the food and knowing that what I ate came from my own hands. And so for me, a prosperous life is a life where that doesn't feel like a time suck, where things are so in flow that I can cook for myself. So number one is you want to get clear, what does that prosperous life look like for you? Clarify it, identify it. And then you get a sensory experience of what it's like to be in that vision. You create a prosperity touch point. So when you close your eyes, it's like you can just suddenly feel yourself there. It's right there for you. You begin to activate that vision and that version of self through mental, spiritual, and physical practices. Like I was saying, you start to every day close the gap between that future version of yourself and where you are presently. And you do that by connecting to that vision, but also feeling into how you can live that right now in your life day by day. You start to shift your mental behaviors. You start to shift your physical body so that it's aligned, so that's on a cellular level, you're actually vibrating at the frequency of prosperity. And you work with the spiritual shift that I spoke about before, of really feeling yourself as that creatrix. And then you have to open up your feminine and receptive energy so that you can be a magnet for your vision when it comes to you and you're able to receive it and let it in. Because what happens so often is that you'll get to the point where something comes to you and you block the receiving of it, or you receive it, but then very quickly you find a way to go back into a burnout quickly afterwards, or overgive. Energetically, this is all happening unconsciously, but you start to overgive because you don't feel quite worthy of receiving it, or that you're not quite allowed to have what came to you. So you have to work on your feminine receptive energy, A, so that you can magnetize, but also so you can really let yourself receive it fully. And then express gratitude for your current life and celebrate your wins each step of the way. So you have to right now see and feel the prosperity that's there. And then each step of the process, while you're shifting into this prosperous version, celebrating the wins each step of the way. And then fun. It has to be fun. One of the things that can happen is if you're so focused on doing all the steps that are outlined. I see this sometimes with women I'm working with. It's like, okay, I want to get it all right. I want to do it all right. And the fun gets lost. The whole purpose of this is that it has to be fun every step of the way. There has to be joy in the process. So for myself, in the past year, these are the steps that I have embodied. And this is what has created such a massive transformation in my life. And it's something that there has been this discipline, but like I said, it's been fun every step of the way. And what has been happening is that I've literally been transforming, like a new body, new reality. And it just keeps opening up more and more every single day. So I really wanted to share this with other women. And I was feeling into what the best way to do that would be. And so what I decided to do was create what I'm calling a mistress mind. It's like a mastermind, a feminine version, for women who feel themselves really called to be these new paradigm leaders, who understand that this shift wants to happen for them too. So that, if you're feeling called to be that leader, that on a deep level that something internal wants to shift so you can actually be that which it is that you want to create or experience in your life, that you can be the vibration of that you can align with that. And so in this mistress mind, what it's going to be is 6 weeks of me holding a space with all the momentum that I'm coming with, holding space for you all and taking you step by step through the process. And it's going to be 6 weeks virtual. There'll be Zoom video calls on Wednesday evenings. And you'll also have a community of women that you'll be connecting with, so that vibration raises together. I've done so many groups of women, and I've noticed how they flourish and thrive when their sisters are cheering them on. And so every woman also gets a buddy and a partner in it. And I want to break down what the process is for you a little bit more. So I'm going to show you a couple slides. Do a little screen share again. All right, so week 1, we step into opening up your portal to receive. So the starting point as I was saying before, is that so many women, we're blocked as receivers. We're not able to receive a compliment. It's hard for us to receive someone helping us with our luggage. And we block all sorts of great opportunities that want to come our way. And when we're connected to our receiving energy, that's actually when we're our most magnetic. And when we're in that receptive frequency, we start to magnetize to us those things that we desire. So I want to start with that so that you start to get that energy flowing. So we're going to learn sensual breathing techniques, other practices that will open up your receiving energy. And then we'll also really clarify that unique personal prosperous vision. And I'll help guide you through getting really clear on what that is, and then beginning a daily practice to help you ground into that prosperous vision so that it starts to become a daily touch point for you. And then week 2 is embody prosperity on a cellular level. So this is where you actually become that which you want to experience or create in your life. That on a cellular level, so often our bodies, our nervous systems are on fight or flight, which is the frequency of lack. And that happens when we push and we push and push ourselves. And I see that with so many women that come to me, that you get kind of like a haggard appearance when you're doing that. You know, it's like everything gets kind of dried out and your face is stressed. And what we want to do is actually bring your system, calm your nervous system down, retrain and rewire it into pleasure, into trust, into joy. So I'm going to be sharing self-care practices that help shift that frequency and calm your nervous system. We'll also be doing movement, breathing practices that open up your aura to attract prosperity, and be practicing beauty rituals together. And I'm also going to give some recommendations around supplements, around food and self-care that will help you retain that prosperous frequency. And then in week 3, we get to fierce focus. And this is where we call forth that fiery aspect of our feminine power to really make a strong commitment to this vision that we're creating for ourselves, to this new reality that we're stepping into, and to cut through any blocks we have to receiving. And we're going to learn physical practices that raise your fire and ground you into your personal power. We're also going to apply laser focus to your finances and limiting personal patterns. So, you know, this will be a week we'll just really look at, you know, do you have issues when it comes to your actual money and finances, or what other ways are you limiting yourself in your patterns and your behaviors, and making a formal commitment to prosperity for yourself. Then week 4 is embody prosperity through your structure, your behaviors, and rituals. So we're going to really anchor you into that prosperous self now. Like I said, we're really shortening the distance between where you see yourself, where you want to be, and where you are now by living into that version of yourself right now. So there's going to be daily life rituals that you'll craft and habits that are going to support your prosperity every single day. And we'll do changes to how you dress. We'll look at what does your future self, your prosperous self, how does she present herself, and make some changes and upgrades there, make changes in the home space, and really just overall let yourself, through your structures, your behaviors, and your rituals, feel that prosperous version now. You'll really start living as her. Now, week 5 is really fun. This is where we get to sex magic and manifestation. This is a big piece of it. It's really important for us as women, not only to connect to our receptivity and that soft energy, but to also connect to our creative sexual life force energy and really learn how to harness that towards our vision. So learning practices that will daily tap you into your sexual energy and keep those juices flowing. We're really going to magnetize, and we're really going to create in this feminine way. We have to be connected as women to our sexual energy. We're also going to learn how to direct the energy of orgasm and pleasure towards your goals, and fill up your fuel tank with pleasure so that you will be full, radiant, glowing, and manifesting through this creative sexual energy. And then week 6 is where we bring it all together. So you're gonna have a whole toolkit by this point of practices, and we're going to review that, and you're going to really make a plan for yourself and how you're going to move forward with this prosperous energy, with this feminine version of yourself that you've been birthing through these 6 weeks, how you're going to really keep that going forward. So you're going to map that out. We're going to learn a few new practices that will help you to anchor that in moving forward, and you'll have a plan for yourself. So We also are going to do a 40-day prosperity practice together. So I will introduce that to you on that first week, and it's something that you will do every single day. It's a sadhana. It's a practice that will take maximum 20 to 30 minutes. And you can, well, we can talk about the timing of that, but ideally 20 to 30 minutes. And this is something that you will do to keep you anchored into this prosperous vibration every single day. And we'll all be doing it together. I've done this 40-day prosperity practice myself a couple of times, and then we'll all be doing it together as a group, which is really, really potent and powerful. And the Prosperous Goddess includes 6 weekly live video classes with a Q&A at the end, the 40-day prosperity practice, a private Facebook group, and a buddy system for support. So if you desire it, we match you up with someone, and then you have someone that you're keeping each other accountable, you're inspiring each other, you're celebrating your wins together. And the dates are starting Wednesday, April 11th through May 16th. And that's 6 consecutive Wednesday evenings. Now, I wanted to make this incredibly affordable for women. I wanted to make it accessible because if you are struggling around prosperity and money, I want this to be something that is an investment that you could make, and know that when you come out the other side, you're going to be in a place where you're magnetizing so much more wealth, but you're able to really access it now where you are. So the pay in full is $444, and the monthly is $166 a month for 3 months. And the early bird, which is ending this Friday at midnight, it's pay in full for $333 or $133 a month. And the last question is, can this really change my whole life? And I want to say to you that it can. I know that it can. I just want to take this screen share off for a moment so I can really talk to you. So I have worked with hundreds and hundreds of women, and this work goes deep. And so on the surface, it sounds like, you know, we're doing something that's just about prosperity, but this is really a fundamental shift, going really to the center point, the core that creates the wounds and issues in all areas of your life, whether it's around relationships or it's in your finances or it's in your career. It all comes from this wound around where you're living in your feminine energy and where you're living in your relationship to prosperity. That shift out of being in this scarce place into this prosperous place will affect every single facet of your life. And it's a spiritual shift, and it's something that you will take with you for the rest of your life. It's doing something that literally will impact the trajectory of wherever you go after this. And I say confidently that I know that this is something that will powerfully change your life. I've worked with hundreds of women doing deep work like this, and I hear back every day how their lives have changed. So I invite you to join us on this journey. I'm so excited about it. I know that these practices have impacted my life so profoundly, and I know that they'll do the same for you, and I'd love to have you with us. I want to open up space right now for questions. And one thing I want to say, so how do you sign up for it, is going to my website, which is www.urbangoddessretreats.com, and you'll see there Prosperous Goddess. That is the name of the course. And when you go on there, you can scroll down and there's lots of information. There's a video on there with me talking about it. A lot of the information we just went over is included on that page. And if you ever come across any issues with trying to sign up for it, or you have questions about it, you can reach out to me personally, which is at my email, amanda@urbangoddessretreats.com. And I want to open up now for questions that anyone might have about anything I've talked about, specifically about the course or about Oshun, about burnout, about prosperity, about feminine energy and receiving. And how you do that, if you want to ask a question, is there's a little Q&A tab, and you can just click on that and write in a question, or you can write something in on the chat. So I want to leave it open for a moment. It doesn't look like anyone's asking any questions. Don't be shy. If there's something that you have a question about, or something that you want to say, please feel free. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. Oh, it looks like someone's typing in a question right now. So someone was asking about the feminine energy, and does that mean that if you go into your feminine that you don't want to be in your masculine at all? And my answer to that is no. We have a healthy aspect of ourselves that's our masculine. It's the fact that we live in a culture that has so valued that part of ourselves. Usually our family, our schools, the culture around us has rewarded that for us growing up, that we have devalued our feminine so much. So absolutely, like, we still have a lot of respect for the internal masculine energy that we have, but it's really letting ourselves embrace that feminine, bring her out of the shadows, because she has a lot to offer us in our life. And it's really through that balance that we're going to find that dream life, that prosperous life that we wanted. So it looks like that was the only question. It's been really a joy to share this all with you. Like I said before, if any questions come up after, or you need to reach me, you can definitely reach me at that email address. And I look forward to all of those of you that are going to be joining us in the 6-week journey coming up. It's going to be really phenomenal, and I can't wait to see you there. All right, good night.